What's going on, hunters? This is the video that I've had on my mind for months and months. Ever since I started playing Bloodborne and started beating the bosses, I wanted to rank them. I had seen a video, which I'm going to put in the description. It's an awesome video that I'm sure I cannot top. And my list is much different from his, but he did an amazing job on listing his rankings as far as the easiest to hardest. So I wanted to do the same, but just have my own personal opinion, what I think of these bosses, and which ones do I think are the hardest. It's just going to be very ambitious. So I'm warning you guys right now, this could be a very long video. So get your snacks, do what you got to do. Hey, even play some Bloodborne in the background if you want. Take some time out to listen to this video. I hope you guys enjoy it. I just wrote the article about this and I have them all listed right here in front of me. This took a few hours for me to do. It's probably my proudest work so far. So if you do want to read the article, I will definitely put that in the description. I appreciate all your guys' support. And yeah, let's just get to this list. So there's 17 bosses in the main game. That includes the optional bosses. Those are the ones I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to talk about the DLC bosses because we all know a few of them would be number 1 and number 2 because they're very, very hard. I'm also not going to talk about the Chalice dungeon bosses. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to keep it to the main game. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and get this started. At number 17, this is probably not a shocker. I have Witch of Hemwick as number 17. This was by far the easiest boss for me. I remember when I was fighting it, I had to look at the bottom to see its health meter. I was like, wait a minute, this is a boss? It honestly did not feel like a boss. It just felt like an enemy. And the trick is, because there's 2 witches, right? And, all the while they are summoning these other enemies that you kind of have to ignore. I didn't take time fighting them. I just ignored them. I kept my attention on the 2 witches. Once you beat one of them, then the other one will have its health meter show. If you could just beat that second one in time before it revives the other one, you're good. And that's pretty much what happened when I fought this thing. I didn't take too much time. I did it in a timely manner, and before I knew it, it was done. It was so easy. So yeah, definitely at number 17, Witch of Hemwick. You deserve this. You weren't much of anything. I only faced it the one time in my first playthrough, so I don't know how it is on New Game Plus, but it was light work. All right, next at 16, we have the Celestial Emissary. In my article, I mentioned how, these things, they look like jelly-like aliens, and if you ever wanted to fight them, here's your chance. They're pretty much a bunch of aliens. One is bigger than the others, and that's the one you got to take down. And they all want a hug. It just seems like they're following you, and they just want you to hug them. Of course, you have to avoid the hugs, focus on the big one, bring it down, and that's pretty much the whole fight. It was such easy work, and I think it's because right after this boss is a huge headache, and we'll get into that later down in the list, but you guys who have played Bloodborne, you probably know what I'm talking about, but we'll get to that later. But as far as this boss right here, it was nothing. It was a piece of cake, and definitely deserves number 16 on my list. Next, we have number 15, which is the Dark Beast Parl. This boss was actually a huge surprise because I remember this was before I had even looked at the list of bosses for this game. I didn't even know it was optional. I was streaming it and someone had told me it was optional. I thought it was mandatory, so I was over here pretty much gloating that I beat it. And I was all excited, and someone's like, hey Erica, it's optional, right? And I felt kind of silly, but I had it done. I got my trophy, and I felt like it was pretty easy. If you just focus on its big legs, take them down, use your long axe or whatever weapon you're using, use a heavy weapon, you'll bring him down pretty quick and be able to get some easy hits on him once he's down. He has the bolt action going on where he kind of uses that as a defense, but it's really easy to avoid, and I felt like it was just easy. I think I beat him in the second try just because the first try I was kind of messing around. And I remember I was playing stupid because I was using bolt paper against him. It's like fighting fire with fire. Like, what was I thinking? But I actually still beat him anyways. So what does that tell you? It really wasn't that hard. Yeah, this is the one that Kenny likes to call the Pikachu because of the lightning. So we refer to this guy as the Pikachu whenever we talk about the game. But as far as overall challenge and overall difficulty, it really wasn't that bad. Very, very doable boss here. At number 14, we have the Moon Presence. Now, the Moon Presence is an optional boss that comes after Germann, which is the final boss. If you eat 3 umbilical cords before you fight Germann, you will get this boss after and ultimately see the quote-unquote true ending. I was able to do that my first playthrough, so I got to play both bosses. And because Germann was such a challenge, and he will be later on in the list, of course, I used so many blood vials. So when I got to Moon Presence, I had none. I literally had maybe 1, but that was it. And of course, he killed me. So once I came back with all my health, all my blood vials, I took him out in one shot. So I'm pretty positive if I had had more blood vials, I would have killed it the first try. The main challenge with this boss is the fact that he will suck your health away. Like, it'll just disappear to like barely a little bit, and you will be unable to use blood vials. During this time, what I was doing was just avoiding him. I was keeping distance, but the trick is actually going in there and actually dealing damage to him, because when you do that, your health will regenerate. I didn't even know this till the end of the fight, and by then he was already so down on his health, I didn't really care. I just kept avoiding him. But that's the trick. So if you really want to get your health back, you can do that. Or you can do like what I did and just kind of avoid him. Either way, it's a pretty easy fight, especially coming after Germann, which was so challenging. At least for me, it was. The Moon Presence just felt like light work after that, because I was just so in the zone, and I was so much, already, up on my skills and playing, at a high level, I guess you can say. He was pretty much light work. So the Moon Presence, not too bad, but definitely, not the easiest boss, but not bad at all. Next, at number 13, we have the One Reborn. This one, to be fair, I actually had some advice that was given to me beforehand. Kenny had let me know that they do have the bell ringing women at the top on the top level. So if you take them out first, the fight is much easier because they cast spells to you if you don't do it. So you'd have to worry about them and the One Reborn. So what I did was I went up there, took them out, and the fight became much easier. Pretty much this boss is just a blob of stuff. It's pretty much like a bunch of body parts and gore, and it's really nasty and gross, and it just kind of moves really slow. And the main challenge and defense that this thing has is it will kind of spew some acid, and it spreads really quickly on the ground. So if you could avoid that, like I did eventually, because that's what killed me the first couple times, is I got stuck in it and just died pretty much instantly because it spreads so fast and it's hard to get out of it. If you can avoid that, you're good. Just use a long weapon. That's pretty much the thing I did, and it was easy after that. Once you avoid that acid, not so bad at all. So the One Reborn, it was probably one of the ugliest, most disgusting bosses in the main game, but it was pretty easy too. I think getting to that boss was way more difficult than the actual boss itself. The route you have to take was kind of grueling, especially if your movement wasn't on point and you were getting hit by poison and everything. That was kind of rough. I think it was more rough than the actual boss, but that's just me. All right, next I have the Blood-Starved Beast. Now this one, a lot of people I feel like had trouble with, but for whatever reason, I didn't. I actually thought it was kind of easy. I was intimidated though going in because Kenny and other people had played it before I did, and they said it was really hard. So when I started facing this boss, I was thinking, this thing is going to be hard. I'm intimidated right now. What do I do? How do I fight this thing? And I think if I didn't have those thoughts in my head, I probably would have beat it even sooner. Once I got my movement down and kind of started using my surroundings to my benefit, it was kind of a piece of cake. I mean, even though it felt hard at the time, when I look back on it, it was just a matter of getting my dodging down. It was all about dodging. It was all about being fast, being smart with my endurance, using the antidotes when I had to. All that good stuff really helped in defeating this boss. The thing about it is it's so quick. It's so fast of a boss that if you get caught and she's just swinging at you and you're getting poisoned, it's rough. You'll go down pretty quick. But if you could just avoid that, get your movement on point, it's not so bad. So the Blood-Starved Beast, I have it, pretty close to the easiest in this list because of the fact that it didn't take me many times to beat it, and it was just a matter of just dodging. I think if you can do that very well, it's not so bad. All right, next I have Rom the Vacuous Spider. Now, before, when I had first started this video, I mentioned that I watched another video by a guy who did a list like this, and he actually had this as his number one hardest boss. I was very surprised by that. I didn't think people really had that much trouble with this boss, but apparently people did. For me, though, it maybe took me 7, 8 times to beat. It was more so just about avoiding those meteors. That's really the only thing that's bad and hard about this boss is those freaking ice meteors, because they're random. They're kind of cheap at times. If you're not dodging or rolling away at the right time, it'll just kill you like in one hit, especially if you're not leveled up very high. And that was the problem with me. I would have this boss down to a little bit of health, and out of nowhere, this meteor would just take me out. And that was it. So that was the main trouble with this boss. If those meteors weren't there, this boss may be one of the easiest bosses in the game. Once I started using the fire paper and I was able to, just dodge those meteors, I had it. I owned this boss. But up until then, the cheapness was there a little bit. And yeah, those meteors, that's the thing you really have to worry about. Also, the other little spiders as well. I kind of had to pick and choose which ones I should kill and which ones I should ignore. Because if I found an opening to get to Rom, the actual boss, I would go in there and just go ham and just start swinging away. But if there was a bunch of little spiders there, then yeah, I had to take them out. So it was a lot of patience that was needed. And once I hit that sweet spot and found my patience and found what worked, then it was pretty easy after that. Next at number 10, we have Amygdala. I mentioned in my article that I wish I could say this boss was earlier in my list. It's kind of embarrassing how much I struggled with this boss, because it's actually on paper, when you look at it and you think about its weak spots and everything, it's an easy boss. It's not hard. It's kind of a mind game, if anything, because his arms are so long and everything, and he has magic and spells that he uses later, or she, I'm not sure if it's a he or she, but if you can just avoid that and be timely and not take so damn long like I did, you probably beat this boss pretty easily. My problem was that I was not playing very well when I fought this boss. I was sloppy. I was pretty much like giving it one hit and then I would back off, and it was just taking way too long, way too much time for this thing to use its spells and everything on me. So I was just getting manhandled, and I really could have probably beat this boss a lot sooner, but I was just playing bad. So I can't forget that. I can't lie and say, oh, this boss is easier than that. I have to take into account that, yes, I died more than a few times, probably around 10 times. Is that what I wrote down? Let me see. I'm trying to remember. It was around there. I don't know exactly if I put a number, but it was around there. And it was just from me being stupid and not playing right and using what worked. I was kind of just hitting here and there, and then I would back off, and then I would get hit, and then I would hit them. It was just like a cycle that went on way too long, and I could have definitely did better. So Amygdala, you're at number 10. Reluctantly, I did not want to put you here, but I have to be honest, you gave me some trouble when you shouldn't have. So yeah, there we go. Amygdala at number 10. Number 9, we have the Cleric Beast. Same kind of deal with this. I met Cleric Beast as my first boss, so I have to take into account how inexperienced I was at the time I played it, how hard and difficult it was at the time. Because my first playthrough, it took me about 8 to 10 times to beat him, but then when I played him on New Game Plus and Plus, I beat him the first tries. So he's definitely easier once you get leveled up and you actually know how to play the game better, you have experience with the game. But because this was my first actual boss in Bloodborne, yeah, it was difficult. It was my introduction to Bloodborne. So, of course, I hadn't mastered my movement, my dodging, all of that. I was still a rookie, and I struggled. So I have to take that into account. And because of that, Cleric Beast is so high on this list as far as difficulty, because, I was a young pup. I wasn't leveled up yet. And his hits with his arms and everything would deal a lot of damage. And so because of that, it was tough my first time around. So that's definitely why he's at number 9 for sure. Number 8, probably the most annoying boss in the game, and that is Nikolai, host of the Nightmare. I say in my article, I'm like, Nikolai, you're a punk. That's pretty much what I said. Because this guy, he has you chasing him forever. I remember there was this one time I tried to beat him, and I don't know if it was glitched or what, but he kept pretty much having me going in circles, and he would not find his place in that room. Just to even start the fight, I was like, dude, are you going to go in this room or not? Because you're making me follow you for like 5+ minutes here. It at least felt that way. And finally, once we got into the room, then we were able to fight. And that first phase is pretty easy. He has like this tentacle arm that it's easy to avoid. All I had to really worry about was the skeleton people that he was kind of summoning to distract me. I just had to take them out and then try and take him out. And then once he got to his second phase, he got even more annoying because he runs off again. You have to chase him. He jumps into a mirror that you cannot follow him through. And then you have to figure out what room he's in. And eventually I figured out, the route to take to get to him. I get in there. What happens? He uses magic, takes me out in one hit. I was pissed. I was like, this guy is so damn annoying. And I'm pretty sure I was live streaming this. I don't remember. But it took me a few tries just to get the whole process down. It was kind of grueling. It was kind of tedious just getting to that second phase and finding him and trying to avoid that magic. It was kind of tough. And once I realized I could just use my blunderbuss and stop the magic, shoot him so he stops, that's what helped. And that's what really I had to do to beat him. I felt like there was no other way. That was like the only way I could beat him. And eventually I got that down and took him out. I did not miss him one bit after that. He was so freaking annoying. So Nikolai, you are at number 8, you bastard. Number 7 is Murgo's Wet Nurse. Now this thing is kind of one of those bosses again that on paper, it's not very hard when you really think about it and you think about it afterwards, like, you know what? I could have did that differently. I could have probably killed her quicker. But when you're in the fight, it's very, very tedious and it can really test your patience. I felt like my patience was tested so much during this fight because I had to pick and choose when I was actually going to hit her and swing at her and give her damage, because when she would turn her back, for example, because in this fight, you want to get behind her. That's her kind of, I don't want to say weak spot, I'm not positive on that, but that's where you can actually hit her, because if you're in front, she's got like these scissor-like hand things going on, and there's no way you can stay in front of her. So you have to get behind her. And there were times where she would turn around, I see her back, and I'm like, okay, I'm going in. And that probably does not sound right, but I'm going in. Then the scissors they start swinging backwards, and she's like hitting from the back. And I'm thinking, really? So there were times where like you had to not go in right away. You had to really be patient and pick and choose when you're going to go in for a hit, because man, if you just start swinging away and you're trying to just hack and slash her, it was impossible. And then she hits a second phase where everything turns purple. I like to call it the purple haze. It would just kind of come and a double of her would show up. So you have 2 of them attacking you. One of them is the real one of them's a fake. Both of them can kill you. And so that happens, and it became almost impossible. I was like, wait, how the freak am I going to kill this thing? I'm almost out of health. I was using blood vials like crazy. There's not even time to use them. But because I was live streaming it, somebody in the stream was like, just run around the perimeter. Trust me, you won't get hit. So I started doing that, and it actually worked. So whether you want to call that cheesing the boss or not, I don't care. It worked, and I got through those little purple hazes, and I was able to, develop patience and beat her eventually. That was probably one of the longest fights that I actually had in this game. It was just such a long fight, and it just really tested my patience. So Murgo's Wet Nurse, I salute you, because you got some time on your hands. That's all I gotta say. Next at number 6, we got Father G, that Father Gascoigne or however you want to say it. You guys were probably wondering when he was going to come up, because we all have our Father G stories. We all faced him, at least if you bought the game, I'm sure you did. There's a lot of people that probably quit after fighting this stupid guy, because he was rough, especially your first time going in and fighting a hunter that's as close to the movement that you have. It's like he mirrored my character, and it was like a nice little dance, but at the same time he was as quick as me. He was using visceral attacks like me. He was doing everything like me, except he had a second phase that I didn't have. He freaking turned into this beast and was taking me out that way. He was quick, he was big, he was powerful, and because you're not very leveled up at the time, he could take you out in like two swings pretty much. At least that's what it felt like to me. It was rough, but once I started using the surroundings, that was kind of my tactic. I would use the tombstones and the trees to kind of hide behind, and then once he would get behind, I would do like a power swing attack with my axe, and that helped a lot. Fire paper, I think I had at the time, I don't remember. All that stuff helps. Once I got him down to so much, damage and only so much health, he was pretty easy once I got into the groove, I guess. I just had to get in the groove. I didn't take a whole lot of times to try and beat him. I think maybe 10-ish. But he's definitely high on my list because he was tough at the time. When I played him on New Game Plus, it was easy. But the first time, I had to really remember when I was making this list because he was rough, and I'm sure he was rough for many of you guys too. So he definitely deserves this spot at number 6. Next at number 5, I have Martyr Logarius, better known as the King. This guy is optional, so you don't have to face him unless you want some goodies. There's some things you have to get for like weapons and things like that. If you want that wheel weapon, you gotta fight this guy. He was rough. The first time I did beat him, maybe in like 10 or so tries, but I remember on New Game Plus, oh my gosh, this guy got like 10 times tougher. I don't know if I just didn't have patience that day or I was just plain sloppy, but it was so bad that he was dodging me. His dodging is so on point. He was dodging so good that I was falling off the roof, like literally just falling off, killing myself. It was embarrassing. It was making me laugh. But it just goes to tell you that his movement is confusing at times. He'll confuse the heck out of you. And not only that, but he has like these knives that come out and start shooting at you. It's kind of like a magic spell thing that he does, and I didn't even know that you can take that thing out with a knife of my own. Like I didn't even know till New Game Plus. So once I knew that, I would start using that, and still was dying. So Martyr Logarius, I'm going to remember as the first boss that made me give in to co-op, and this was on New Game Plus, so I guess that kind of makes me feel better because the first playthrough I did every boss on my own, and I was very, very proud of that. But on New Game Plus, he was giving me so much difficulty that I had to give in to co-op. So me and Kenny, we went in there and we kicked his ass. And I was so happy, but at the same time I was like, damn it, I really wanted to kill him by myself. But because I did it the first time by myself, I wasn't that embarrassed by it or anything like that. But he is tough, especially on New Game Plus. Like I said, his movement, his attacks, they do a lot of damage. And it's a doable fight. It's very, very doable, but you are going to be there for a while. At least most of us, I'm sure, can agree with that. Next, at number 4, and my most favorite boss, the one that I will always remember, even when I'm old, and that is Vicar Amelia. Oh my gosh, this boss, you guys. This boss made me question my life. Like, who am I? Why am I doing this to myself? What has my life become? This freaking boss right here owned me. Straight up owned the crap out of me. It took me a whole night to figure that out and to stop playing. I actually quit for a bit, for like a month. I didn't play Bloodborne for like a month because, granted, at the time I was planning my wedding, so that kind of plays a part. But I needed to take a break after this boss because she was kicking the crap out of me. I tried pretty much anything and everything because I was just going based off trial and error. I didn't look anything up. I didn't go to YouTube or anything. I just wanted to see, okay, what can I figure out about this boss? What works? What doesn't? And she was straight up owning me. So I stopped playing for a while. And it's funny because when I came back to the game, on the very first try, I beat her. So I always thought to myself, okay, next time I struggle, I'm just going to take a little break because that sometimes helps, at least for me anyways. Freaking Vicar Amelia is such a beautiful fight though. It's my favorite fight, favorite music, favorite everything. It's a phenomenal boss fight. It's the reason, if I had to pick one reason, this is the reason why Bloodborne is my game of the year. This boss fight was the best, and I really mean that. And even though she gave me so much trouble, I look back on this boss and I just absolutely adored it. It was so good. On New Game Plus, I kicked her butt pretty easily, but that first playthrough, she just destroyed me. So she is here at number 4, and it's well deserved. Number 3 is the Shadow of Germann. These 3 punks right here. The first playthrough, it wasn't so bad. It was doable. I ended up beating it with maybe 8 times, 8 tries it took me. But New Game Plus, oh my gosh, these guys are rough. Like, they really, really kicked my butt for the longest time. I think I did co-op on this as well on New Game Plus because they were just in my way. I wanted to move along. I was trying to get some new stuff, get some weapons, play the optional bosses that I missed. So that was my focus. I was just thinking, you guys are so much in the way right now. I already beat you. How come I can't do it again? And it was just really frustrating, especially when they get to their second phase and they start turning into snakes and they're using the snakes to attack. It was just chaos. So this boss, there's a lot to worry about. There's 3 of them. The key, of course, is to kill one at a time. If you focus on one, you can get their health down, kill them, and then focus on the other 2. It gets easier that way. Instead of trying to take on all 3, you'll just get overwhelmed and it's too chaotic. But if you could just go one at a time, yeah, you'll put them down. But I'm telling you guys, I don't know if it's just me, but on New Game Plus, this boss fight was just so damn hard. Maybe I was just off that day. I don't know. But they gave me a lot of trouble, so they definitely had to get moved up in this list. If I just based it just off my first playthrough, they'd probably be down further as far as, closer to the easiest bosses, but damn, that New Game Plus, it was rough when I had to fight these guys. All right, number 2 is Germann, the First Hunter. I had to take into account New Game Plus, of course. He was so hard on New Game Plus. Even the first time around, I think it took me maybe like 15 tries to kill him because his moves are just so fast. He's so powerful. Even if you're leveled up, he'll take a lot of your health, especially when he goes into his second phase and he's, throwing that whirlwind of magic or whatever that is. He's deadly. And I love this fight so much. It's probably one of my favorite fights in the whole game because it's just beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to play and watch because of the atmosphere, the music. Everything about this fight is just so beautiful, and just the dance between the 2 is something I really, really like, and it was one of my highlights of the whole entire game. Germann, even though he was hard, I never really got that frustrated because it was such a beautiful freaking fight, and I just enjoyed everything about it. So because of that, I wouldn't put this as most frustrating or nothing like that, but he was hard just to, counter him, to get the visceral attacks down on him. It was rough. It was kind of hard at times. And he would pull the viscerals on me too. So there I was, trying to get him, but he'd end up getting me. And it was wow. It was hard. But yeah, Germann was definitely one of the most difficult bosses in this game. I mean, he's the first hunter. He taught my character everything that she knew. He was a step ahead many, many times in these fights. And that's what ultimately I think would kill me, because he'd be a step ahead. At least it felt that way. And that's what brought the challenge and made it so good, because when I finally was a step ahead of him and I finally showed him, hey, you taught me well, it was so damn satisfying. And I'm just glad that I had enough times to die to him, because it taught me a lot and it made my movement and dodging and everything so much better. He was the ultimate teacher in the end. And then there was one. Reedus, Daughter of the Cosmos, without question, is my number 1 hardest boss in Bloodborne. This boss made me question everything. It made me question myself as a gamer, made me question myself as a person. I often was asking myself, do I lack patience? Who am I right now? Am I a human being? Because I felt like a zombie at one point, because I was just going in there, dying, going back in there, dying again. It was like an over and over process that just felt like it was never going to end. I felt like I was never going to beat this boss. At one point, I felt that I was just doomed and this was never going to happen. It was that much of a struggle. This boss right here, I really regretted waiting till New Game Plus to fight her, because I imagined to myself thinking this has to be easier on the regular playthrough, because when I was playing it on New Game Plus, it seemed impossible. And I kept thinking in my mind, I should have done this earlier. I should have played this in the first playthrough. And I think that kind of messed me up. I think in my mind, it messed up my mind game and it just made me off, and I just could not do it. And eventually, after so many deaths where I lost count, I honestly couldn't tell you guys. It had to be over 40. I would say. At least 40 deaths to this thing. Finally, I beat it. Never wanted to see it again. Reedus, you can kick rocks for life, pretty much. I would never, ever, ever want to face this boss again because of all the struggle that it gave me. It was an awesome fight in retrospect, but at the time, no. I hated this boss. And the thing about it is that it was so hard to read. It was very different every time. You know how there's patterns with bosses and all the enemies in Bloodborne, and you kind of have to memorize at some point. With her, I felt like it was different every time. And when I would find something that worked, she would just be like, no, that's cute, but I have something different for you. And she would switch it up. Literally, it felt like every time it was different. And that's what really got me and made me struggle, is that her rush attack would kill me like in one hit. And then there were times where she would just bash her head on top of me. Then there were other times where her arms would swing and get me. It was rough. And just trying to get behind her to get hits into her with my fire paper, bolt paper, anything was so difficult. And so because of that, Reedus, it's not even a contest. You are number one. Let's give her a round of applause, whatever she needs, because I never want to see her again. It was bad, but you know what? Maybe if I would have faced her in the first playthrough, maybe I'd have a different experience, but on New Game Plus, it was just terrible. So congrats, Reedus, you win, I guess, if you want to, take that as a win. But man, I gotta say, the bosses in this game, I can't say enough about this game. You guys know I love it so much. It's my game of the year. The bosses definitely contributed to that. The satisfaction from beating these bosses, nothing can top it, at least in my recent memory. It's just everything that I want in a game. Bloodborne has it all. It has the atmosphere. It has the combat. It has the challenge. It has the creative bosses. Even though some of them I hate. They're beautifully designed, even though they're gross at times. Just so creative, so challenging. Everything about this game I absolutely loved. And the bosses definitely were a huge part of why this game is my game of the year. And so I hope you guys liked this list. I hope you like this video and the gameplay and everything else. Let me know your list if you want to work on it. It's fun to do, especially if you're a big Bloodborne fan. You should do it. It's real fun. This was one of the best projects I worked on for SheAttack.com. Definitely a delight to write. And even making this video wasn't so bad. I thought it was going to be kind of hard, but I did it. But yeah, that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.